Hi, everyone. Don Famularo here, and this is so great. The Sabian Education Network that is managed by Joe Bergamini. It's organized all by the Sabian Symbol Company. This program reaches over 5,000 teachers globally, and today I have a very dear friend of mine who I have known for almost 30 years. Would you please welcome Mr. Toni Cannelli?
Thank you very much, Dom. I'm pleased to be here, mate.
Boy, Toni, we go back a long ways, and you are based out of Sheffield in the UK.
That's right.
And you've been there for many, many years, since I can remember when I had first met you. And we go back to meeting in the early 90s when we were organizing different events and you were organizing events, and this was incredible. And I really remember the time where when I met your wife at that time, she was pregnant with your first daughter.
That's right, yeah. Who's watching it now? Hello, Charlotte.
This is fantastic to experience. Well, Toni, I got to tell you something. I am so impressed with your incredible longevity in what you have done for drumming and the amount of energy you have put in to the UK drumming educational market is absolutely amazing. I want to go back to the beginning and really kind of experience what got you first involved with drumming. When was the first time you put sticks in your hand and felt that love for drumming?
Well, that's a good question, Dom. I come from an artistic family. My grandmother was a pianist, and her husband was an artist, and their daughter, my mum, was a tap dancer.
Oh,
so she was a tap dancer, and when I was about, I don't know this, she told me, but when I was 2, I tap dancing lessons, and believe it or not, I was quite a bashful kid, and I just found it intimidating, a room full of girls and just me. So what happened was my older brother used to play in a marching band, and there was a drum at home and a pair of sticks. So I picked the sticks up, and it was just like a duck to water. It was just natural. So as soon as I picked the sticks up, what we used to do, my mum used to do a tap dance routine on the kitchen floor, and I'd emulate it with the sticks.
Oh, is that amazing?
So I was about 3 at the time. So after that, they started to realize that, I was really keen on it. And what we did was my grandmother used to listen to a lot of big band jazz. And when I went round to her house, she used to have like a record collection of 78s. Do you remember 78s?
I sure do.
Yeah. And I heard one recording, I think it was Art Tatum, because he was probably the best pianist of all time.
Yeah.
And on that recording was Buddy Rich. So when I heard Buddy Rich play, it was like a religious experience.
Yeah.
it was like the wow moment. So as soon as I heard that, I was hooked. So what we did was because the house was quite small, they couldn't get me a drum kit, but they signed me up for a marching band. And I really was enthusiastic about it. So as soon as I joined, I was only about 7 at the time. Most of the guys in the marching band were between the ages of 15 and 21. So they allowed me in because I had this I could do it, as it were. So they used to play pieces, and we had to learn things like 7-stroke rolls and roughs. And I used to go home and frantically just practice for hours and hours and hours. And to their dismay, I started to play as good as the 15-year-olds, which didn't go down that well because there was a little kid who could actually do what they were doing. So after that, I think my first major gig with them was the Royal Festival Hall in London. And then we started to go around Europe, believe it or not. They were an amazing band. They were called the Hornchurch Drum and Trumpet, which were like the Rolls Royce of marching band. So that was my enthusiasm for marching band drumming was great. Then my parents caved in and bought me a drum kit. And when I got a drum kit, I could just play it. I didn't take any lessons. And I just used to sit and play along to, initially it was just Motown music and stuff like that. And when I was 10, they took me to see Buddy Rich in London in 1968. Something I can never forget. It was just like unbelievable. And then after that, I started to do gigs, believe it or not. I was about 11, and the people I were playing with were about sort of 15, 16. So that was it. The start of my musical career was just playing songs.
So at this point now, you're 11 and you've already done some traveling. Let's go back for a minute. What was it about Buddy Rich's playing that reached you and spoke to you clearly?
It was the passion behind the notes, and when I listened to Buddy play in the band situation, it was the sensory acuity. You could tell, he could hear every note, and he was, I don't know, I don't think it was the world, apart from being the world's greatest drummer, he was the world's greatest musician. So when I went to see him play, the band were tight because they were all following his left hand, and he could hear what everyone was doing. And for me, that was a big lesson. The lesson is you've got to have radar ears to be a good drummer. You've got to listen to what's going on, and you've got to listen to every player, and you've got to play appropriately for the music. Buddy never played inappropriate ever.
Right.
It was all, in fact, sometimes I think he underplayed. It's just the feature of the music, and of course that made his solos stand out, because when he soloed, it was like ridiculous. But the music was the music. So yeah, Buddy Rich, and of course when I was practicing at home, my mum used to get me albums, and the album, another life-changing album, was called Drumsville by L. Palmer. And I got that album when I was about 10, and I learned every track on it. And that's L. Palmer, to me. He invented pocket drumming.
Yeah.
He invented the 2 and 4, basically. He invented the backbeat.
Yeah.
So L. Palmer, for me, was like the godfather of groove. So once I got into the L. Palmer stuff, and of course, if you listen to the stuff in the 60s, Little Richard, and of course, all the Flintstones, all the film music had L. Palmer on. He was like the Steve Gadd of the 1950s, I think. So that, for me, L. Palmer was like a massive part of my development. And to this day, sometimes I do studio work and people say, "We think you sound like L. Palmer," and that's a massive compliment, because I don't. But I was definitely influenced by L. Palmer in a massive way.
Well, you can tell, because the times that I've heard you play, man, your pocket is deep and you're into the groove, and even a lot of the stuff you've posted on social media, on your Facebook and Instagram page, has been great, man. It's got you playing, it's got you completely loving every note in that groove, and you are inside that song deeply, for sure.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, like I say, sometimes my students say to me, "Tony, what do you practice?" And my answer is, there's 19 million recorded songs. Now, if you played all those songs back to back, it would take approximately 200 years.
Yeah.
So that means I'm a beginner.
Hey, that's a fantastic way to look at it. That means we're all beginners in that process.
Yeah, all of us. Yeah, we're all beginners.
That is great. So now you heard Buddy on recordings. It's interesting when you say the early days of tap dancing. I also, because my sister got involved in understanding and witnessing and being a part of tap dance at a young age. And it's very, very helpful to drumming. And listen, Buddy Rich, great tap dancer. All these great drummers, Steve Gadd, Louis Bellson, Morello, Jack DeJohnette, Roy Haynes, all these guys were just great, great. Papa Joe Jones, Ed Thigpen, all of them were great, great tap dancers.
Absolutely.
And they just took those rhythms of tap onto drum set, which seems like what you did at a very, very early age.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. In fact, what my mum used to do when I got into Buddy Rich, she used to put the album on and tap along to the track. And she could also emulate the solos as well with her feet, which was like, I don't know. It's like I say, I was a weird kid because I was into big band jazz. All the rest of my friends were into Slade, which is a kind of an odd thing, because they come round to my house and they say, "Have you got any Slade albums?" I go, no, but I've got Buddy Rich? They'd be like, oh, who's that? But, you know, like I say, listening to music of that caliber can only improve you, because it sets the bar so high. I attempt to do Buddy Rich songs now, and I'm still nowhere near as good. But I mean, it's just great to try and sort of get to that point, which is like really, really amazing.
So what was it like when you first went to see Buddy play live? Now, it's 1968. He had just put his band together in 1966. So it was still a fresh young band, and that band was on fire. I heard that band also 1960, I think 66 or 67. The first year or two when Buddy's band came out is when I heard them, and that band was just absolutely on fire. What was that like when you went to hear them?
Well, I mean, it's a long time ago, Don, but I can remember my mum telling me that after I went to the concert, I couldn't sleep for about 2 nights. My mind was just like mind blowing. And Buddy also was like a stand-up comedian. I mean, I can remember how funny the guy was, and the whole place was in fits of laughter. I don't know, and he was so casual about his talent. He would just come off the drums, tell a couple of the jokes, and just walk back slowly, and then just play like a monster. And it's kind of like, how do you just switch it on like that? It's incredible.
You know, he was one intense player for sure in what he did. At this point now, you were playing with the marching band. So, you know, I guess the marching band to a certain degree was really kind of helping you with your chops.
Definitely, yeah. But I remember going home and putting a kind of a towel over my drum and just practicing doing single strokes for hours and hours, and then taking it off. I reckon personally my chops were better then than they are now, because I used to be so dedicated to it. It was like absolutely crazy. But after I'd been playing in bands, I told my mum I wanted to be a professional drummer, but I couldn't read music. So we were lucky enough to find a teacher called Bob Armstrong. Now, Bob, you know Bob. Bob was sensational. I mean, the first lesson was a life changer. No, Bob could walk the talk because he was a full-time professional drummer who just so happened to teach. And I used to go and watch him do gigs. Wow, they were doing that jazz fusion stuff like Return to Forever. And Bob was a monster player. So when I was studying with Bob, all of a sudden I started to understand reading. And then I used to go to what they call a social club. There's a place in Romford where they used to have like an organist and a drummer. And as a 12-year-old, I asked the drummer if I could just sit behind and read the charts. And slowly I started to pick up what a DS was, what a coda was. And then I started to deck for the guy when I was 12. So I started to learn how to read properly. And that led on to me doing more and more gigs. And then finally, I'm trying to think how old I was. I was about 17 or 18. I got my first professional job with Mac and Katie Kassoon, who were from Trinidad. They had a couple of songs in the charts. And then I was off on tour. So I don't know, from that point onwards, I was professional for 12 years. And after 12 years of being full-time professional, no time off, no whatever, I ended up buying a house in Sheffield. And when I bought the house in Sheffield, I made a conscious decision that I didn't really want to tour anymore. So I started to do studio work here in Sheffield. I was gigging in Sheffield, and also I was lucky enough to play with a guy called Gary Boyle. Have you heard of Gary Boyle? No? Now, yeah. Gary is a jazz fusion guitarist. His drummers are normally Simon Phillips. And he's got, he's done albums with Gary Moore, you name it. So it was a real privilege playing with somebody as good as that and learning the Simon Phillips drum parts. So, I was having a ball, because when you do a lot of touring, just to go home at night is a revelation.
Yeah.
And to have a house, to have a base, it was like quite amazing. So then I was requested to start teaching, and I started to teach, and it just kind of went a little bit crazy. It went from having 2 students to all of a sudden there was about 50 students. So, I mean, I'm not complaining, but, you know, initially, I don't think I was a very good teacher because I used to teach people the way I played. And I don't think that's a good thing to do, because I remember I was doing a lesson once and a kid came to the lesson. He said, "Oh, I saw a band last night. They were really great. And you taught the drummer." I said, "Oh, really?" I said, what was the drummer's name? He said, "Well, I don't know." I said, "Well, how do you know I taught him?" And he came up with a terrible answer. He said, "Well, he sounded just like you." And I started to realize, oh my God, I'm doing this wrong. It's not about me. It's about the individual, and you have to nurture what they've got to say on the instrument. So to me, that was a learning curve. But, you know, I really enjoy the teaching stuff because it just, I don't know, if you keep a positive attitude and you try and think that you're helping the student achieve their goals, it's a good feeling. Well, you should know.
I'm with you 100% on that too. And, you know, I want to go back for a second to Bob Armstrong. I had the chance of knowing Bob for many, many years. Bob was the top educator in the UK, and he taught yourself and Steve White and so many other, you know.
Russell Gilbrook, Colin Woolway, well, you name it. The who's who in British drumming. Phil Gould with Level 42, he had lessons with Bob. We all went to Bob because, I don't know, Bob, he just had this thing about him. He was just like a very good player and a very good communicator.
And he was, and he understood the techniques, and he understood all the different avenues of how to pull, you know, the strength out of each student. And unfortunately, we lost him too soon. Bob's been gone now a couple of years, and his wonderful wife Charmaine is an absolute saint of what she keeps on going with a lot of Bob's memories and stuff. And there was an incredible memorial that was done for Bob that was just beautiful.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, like I say, you could tell the turnout of people that went to that event, the testament to how amazing Bob was as a person. And of course, the UK drumming scene is sorely misses him because it wasn't just a case he was a great teacher and player, he was a great character as well. And, you know, and it's an emptier place without Bob, definitely.
But I mean, listen, you and many of those other great players carry on the tradition of Bob Armstrong really, really well, because you all have those same qualities of being great players and being great communicators. So at that point now you start teaching. So were there any books that Bob taught you out of? What was that like? How did he teach?
No, with Bob, I only did the Buddy Rich snare drum book. That was it. And Bob used to he used to write drum grooves out. He'd play something and write a groove out, and then eventually he'd play something and ask me to write it out. So that was a great way of like learning how to read. But no, I didn't. Most of my experience of reading charts were done in clubs. But with Bob, it was just a case of like, he got your technique going, he got the basic reading skills going. And of course, he was very, very, motivational. It was the motivation. You go to one of his lessons and you just felt like you were on top of the world when you came out. So, like I say, I think as a student, sometimes Bob wasn't that pleased with me because I was doing so many gigs. So I was doing a lot of gigs, and of course I wasn't doing what he was telling me to practice as much as I should. But on the other side of the coin, I think he was chuffed the fact that I was out playing.
Boy, it's amazing, just the incredible stories when you go back and think about when we were younger and taking lessons and what that meant and what we're doing now. I mean, you really are one of the top leaders in the drumming community in the UK. And with the students that you have, so you start teaching, and now your teaching practice starts to explode. Because I remember when I met you almost 30 years ago, your teaching was intense. You had people coming all over the place. It was crazy.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Well, I mean, thankfully, it's not really died off. At the moment, I'm doing it online, obviously, because of the pandemic. Yeah, I mean, doing it online, I'm able to do foreign students and stuff like that, which is like absolutely great. But yeah, I think, you know, out teaching people, it's just the buzz I get is to see them doing well for themselves and then follow their career. And because you have a friendly atmosphere, they're quite happy to stay in contact and, you know, and talk to you after they've left having the lessons. I mean, you remember Pete Ray Biggin? I mean,
well, we got to tell that story. He opened up for me at a clinic and blew me away. How old was he when he did the clinic with me?
I think Pete was about 13 then. Yeah, absolutely. And you know, the kid was like an absolute dynamo. When he came to lessons, I didn't show him how to do it. I think his dad, who's a drummer, showed him how to do it. He could do these incredible drum solos and stuff like that, which is like mind-blowing at a small age. In fact, if you look on YouTube, I got him on a kids program called Blue Peter. If you search Pete Ray Biggin, Blue Peter, and he was only 12 when he was on that. And I think that was his big break. I don't know if Pete's watching this. I think he got some Sabian cymbal endorsement after he did that gig on telly. But yeah, as you know, Pete was, all I really did with Pete was like try to calm him down, make him sit and get more deeper into the pocket and stuff like that. But wow, what a dynamo that guy is. I mean, he seemed to, I think the first time I heard him play on a recorded session was on the first Adele album. That's got Pete playing a song called Cold Shoulder. And he does a really mean kind of James Brown funky type groove on that. And it's kind of like, wow. But yeah, Pete, if you look into him, he's done Adele, he was Amy Winehouse, Mark Ronson. And at the moment, he's doing the Level 42 gig, which is like amazing because Phil Gould's an incredible drummer who doesn't play with him anymore. And for Pete to replace someone as good as that, wow.
That's absolutely amazing. Is Gary Husband still with the band Level 42?
No, Gary he's been playing. In fact, Gary Husband played with Gary Boyle as well, the guy I played for. But Gary's been doing John McLaughlin's gig on keyboards, but I think he's been doing it on drums as well. And he also plays keyboards with Billy Cobham. And I think he does drum duets with Billy Cobham as well. I mean, how's that for talent?
Well, that's fantastic. Well, we'll talk about, I mean, like when you're teaching, take me through a little bit of a teaching formula. Do you use any books, you know, in the process, you know?
Well, yeah, I use, look, here's a plug. I use your book, Dom. Oh, there's a plug. I like using the Jim Riley book because that's got loads of songs where you have to orchestrate the songs with drums, and the songs are brilliant, and Jim's a great drummer. And I used the Frank Corleone book, which I know you endorsed, Dom.
Yes.
Rhythm section drumming. And that, you know, is a journey. I've never tired of that book, ever. It's just everything's so well written about that book. So I don't know. And of course, I use the Jim Chapin book if they want to do jazz. I don't know. Most of the stuff that I do is song orientated. I like to get kids into playing music, but obviously we work on chops as well.
Boy, you know, it's kind of interesting when you mentioned the Frank Corleone book. Frank Corleone, who is a phenomenal drummer himself, and Frank owns in Melbourne, Australia, he owns a retail store called Drum Tech,
right?
Which is also a large music drumming school. He's got 16 teachers teaching for him at the school, and he organizes the Australia Ultimate Drummers Weekend Festival every couple of years, which is phenomenal. He also runs Drum Scene Magazine, which is about to celebrate their 25th anniversary of producing magazines. He's a pretty little powerhouse, and he's got 2 great books out, Rhythm Section Drumming, which you mentioned, and Rudiments in Motion.
Yeah, I've got that. That's a phenomenal book, Dom. That's a very, very good book.
And I tell people to, you know, seek this out. These are books that are really powerful, and you know you can track them down from Frank in Australia, or track me down, and I'll get the books for you. But these are really books to open your mind up from a creative genius like Frank, who does them. So here you are using his book, And the rhythm section drumming, that book's been out now about 30 years. It is still a #1 seller that goes out there. So it's great that you use a book like that.
Yeah, the thing is, Dom, I don't do grades. I've always believed that you're graded by your peers. So when you play with someone, they will grade you, how good you are. But for me, if I can get one of my students to the back of rhythm section drumming, they don't need any more lessons from me.
Yeah.
You just go out, get on with it, because if you can get yourself up to that standard, I don't think you're going to be, unless you're going to do some ridiculous Frank Zappa music, I don't think that's as far as you need to take it.
You know, to play drums and get some enjoyment out of drums, that's a very, very good point. And, you know, there are several great books, like even like you mentioned, the Jim Chapin book, if someone wants to get into independence and jazz. You know, there are certain books that work out well, Stick Control in these books. They're all classic books to use. So with someone like Pete came out, he played the clinic for me, he did his thing. Listen, he absolutely blew me away. He really played way above his, it was kind of like way above his age. You know, he was only.
Yeah. But the thing is, Don, I didn't help him with that demo at all. So it was a shock to me when he played Sting's song in 5/4, whatever. I didn't help him do that. He did that himself.
Well, I'm sure you gave him many of the skills that opened him up to understand how to play a group. That tune in 5 is a Vinnie Colaiuta induced song that you better have your act together to have that laid down to get the pocket that Vinnie, and as Pete did also. It's absolutely amazing.
Absolutely. And like I say, Vinnie Colaiuta is a big inspiration to all of us. I know you interviewed Vinnie. I mean, that guy, what doesn't he know about drumming? You know, he's probably forgotten more about drumming than I'll ever know. But I mean, it's just a big inspiration to everyone.
As I told Vinnie off camera when I interviewed him, I said, Vinnie, if I knew 10% of what you've forgotten, I'd be a better drummer.
Well, actually, I met Vinnie at a Herbie Hancock gig quite a few years ago. He's a really nice guy, and we got on really, really well.
It's amazing how you know, you have met so many drummers in the course of your life. Who would you say, if you had to name your top 5 drummers that influenced you, that alive or dead, who would you say were those top 5 that really, really fire you up?
Well, obviously, Buddy Rich. Then there'd be El Palmer, definitely El Palmer. After that, Jeff Porcaro.
Oh, wow.
Steve Gadd, obviously, and of course Billy Cobham.
Boy, this is you know, I'm writing these names down and BC. So talk about Jeff Porcaro. What was it that Jeff? I mean, you know, obviously Buddy, you talked about. You know, you understood what the energy of Buddy was. Earl Palmer, pocket 2 and 4. What was it about Jeff that did it for you?
Well, again, I was very fortunate. I actually met Jeff in Hollywood in a drum shop, professional percussion, and it was just a fluke thing. And Jeff was there. And the first thing that struck me about him was he had a kind of air of confidence, but also he was very humble. Yeah. And when I listened to Jeff play, I don't know, that guy seemed to have a magic formula for listening to music and just making it work and playing exactly what it needed, and very precisely. I think anyone watching this, try to play some of the tracks that Jeff played on, and it's a real education in taste. That's the way I think of it.
You know, he really. I was fortunate to meet Jeff back in 1976 when I had moved out to California, and he really was an interesting guy, man. He really knew how to just be in the moment and just play the right part at that time in the right situation and step out of everyone's way, but yet create the right supporting groove that was needed.
Well, I just finished the book about Jeff, and I'm sure you've read it as well, Dom. And in the back, the discography is frightening.
Yeah.
And you know, there's tracks he played on, and I didn't realize that he played on. And when you go back and listen to it, it's got that kind of air of perfection about it, which only him and Steve Gadd in the 70s were the two guys that could do that. I mean, there are other players that are really, really good, but those two guys for me, I think Michael McDonald brought an album out called If That's What It Takes. And it's got both of them playing drums, Gadd and Porcaro. And when you listen to that album, it's just mind-blowing, just how incredibly correct the drumming is for the music. And what a beautiful sensation they give to the music as well.
You know, it's kind of interesting. The book that you mentioned about Jeff Porcaro, It's About Time, written by Robin Flans, but it was edited by Joe Bergamini. And
That's right, yeah.
I highly recommend everyone who's listening from all around the world, and I want to go down the list of who's here currently listening to you right now, Tony, but I want you all to go out and get the book, hudsonmusic.com.
Yeah.
Pick up the book. It is absolute required reading for all of my students, because not only are you going to step into the world of what Jeff Porcaro was like to understand the legend that he was, and Jeff was a legend while he was alive. He was that good. He really was. But you're also going to get the discography of what Joe has mentioned even here. Let me see if I can pull this up right here. The discography is amazing. Make a playlist of some of the songs. I did it, and it's so inspiring. So go back to the discography part of the book, check it out, and it'll open you up dramatically to kind of see some of the stuff that Jeff had done, which many people still don't know. Thank you, Joe. They still don't know all of what Jeff really did. And every recording was just magic.
Absolutely. And there's a few clips on YouTube, if you check him out, actually doing sessions. And he's got this, I never noticed before, but when he's playing, his body kind of snakes in and out in time with the music. That guy, when he played the song, he's 1,000,000% into it. If you put your hand in front of his face, he would not register it. He was into it big time. And of course, that's what you have to do when you're a recording musician. You have to give everything to the song. You have to switch the world off.
Well, you know, it's amazing, Tony, when you mention someone like a Jeff Porcaro. Now, Steve Gadd, what's about Steve Gadd? Were there any recordings in particular that kind of did it for you with Steve?
Well, come on, Steve Gadd. I mean, what I got from Gadd was, firstly, the guy played open-handed and the other way round. All the ideas were superb, and things he did with the rudiments, most people don't do because they're not taught creativity. And of course, Gadd was one of the most creative drummers ever, I think. Is just incredible. And he's one of those guys who can really pull it off playing jazz. He can really pull it off playing funk, Latin, the whole lot. He's just so versatile. I mean, my favorite Gadd recordings, blimey, I've got some albums by a guitar player called Steve Kahn. Yeah. And Gadd plays incredible on that. I mean, there's an album called The Blue Man. And that's some of my favorite Steve Gadd stuff is on that particular album. It's kind of like jazz fusion-y type stuff, but I don't know. Again, you look at Gadd's discography; it's just unbelievable. And no, what can you not say about Gadd? Is Steve God? There we go, Steve God.
That pretty much says it. You know, we have just recently, unfortunately, lost the great Chick Corea. He passed away at the age of 79 just several days ago, and the music industry is still in shock because of that. Because Chick was such a powerful presence. And the drummers that he used with his band all the time were always at the high end. And Chick himself was a phenomenal drum set player. And Sabian recently put out a symbol called the royalty symbol that Chick had been given to Chick by Roy Haynes. And Sabian put this symbol out. It's an 18-inch ride. It just sounds fantastic. So I highly suggest everyone go out and check out the royalty ride. It is just about as deep as you can out of the ears of Chick Corea.
Mm. And I mean, it was a bit of a shock, Don, because I saw you interviewing him not long ago. Yeah. And he looked okay. So, I mean, it's just, there's a message there, people. Just enjoy every day and try and get the most out of every day.
Boy, it really is, Tony. You know, I mean, I live my life every day as if it's my last. I've always lived it that way. And that's a choice I make every day because we don't own tomorrow. We don't even own later. So
No,
I'm trying to take advantage of each moment that I'm in so I can squeeze the moment of what it was. And you know,
definitely.
I'll tell you something. You've got some incredible viewers that are here around the world. I got to go back. Tony McNally is here from the UK.
All
Kevin
right.
Lehman, Kevin Lehman from Colorado. My gosh, we've got John Gill from upstate New York. We've got Kevin Gaffney is here from Long Island. We've got, oh my gosh, we've got Janice Davis from Ohio. I'm going to go down here. We've got Ali Seuss from Sao Paulo, Brazil. Bruno Muse from Belgium. Victoria is from Kiev, Ukraine. Artem Mikor is from Moscow.
Wow.
We've got Stanley Alexander from Louisiana. We've got Nate Carranza. Look at this here. Nate Carranza. Hello from the Philippines.
Woo.
Tony, you got a pretty serious crowd here. We've got, my gosh, Bill Sabia from New York. My Max Butner from Germany. This is incredible how many people we have here. We've got Roman Kavanskipov is from Russia.
Oh my God.
We've
Wow.
got Malink from Indonesia. We got some. We got Pieter Astuzin from South Africa.
Wow.
We've got Patrick Metzger, a phenomenal drummer from Germany, is here. Stephen Chamberlain is here. We've got this wonderful Charlotte Cannon is here.
That's my daughter.
I know. She's joined us too. So it's phenomenal that we have this kind of a wide view. So I want everyone to understand. You mentioned one more name that I want you to talk about. You mentioned Billy Cobham. Talk about Billy as an influence to you.
Oh, blimey, Billy. Billy turned everything upside down for me, really. I used to be like into James Brown, into Motown, and all that kind of business. And of course, Buddy Rich. And then Billy came along, who was a combination of all that.
Yeah.
It was Buddy Rich, Motown, James Brown, all in one lump. And of course, the album that kind of just really did it for me was, I'm sure most drummers, was Spectrum by Billy Cobham. Yeah. And now, if you're a drummer and you're watching this and you haven't listened to Spectrum by Billy Cobham, please do it. Yeah. Because firstly, it's an incredible recording. The sound of it is amazing. Even now, I think it was about 1972 it was recorded. But the playing on it, the diversity of the grooves, the meters, in between every track, he did those really lovely little drum solos.
Yeah.
One of my favorite albums, and I was lucky enough in the 70s, I went along to a Tama drum clinic. I'm trying to think when it was, about 1975. And all the drummers in London were there, obviously. I remember seeing Simon Phillips and quite a few people. And basically, when he did the question thing, I don't know why, but I asked him about 4 questions and he answered it, and no one was asking any questions. And afterwards, I had a chat with him. Really nice guy, and he thanked me for the questions and all that kind of stuff. But, you know, Billy Cobham, I don't know, is probably, I don't know, one of the greatest drummers in the last 50 years. There's no two ways about it.
You know, Billy has become a dear friend of mine. I met Billy about 50 years ago. He was living on Long Island at the time, and we became friends. And I just had a chance to then open up for him at many clinics for Tama at those days. And we traveled around the world. It was just so great, the consistency of great playing, of how he played every single day. And listen, the traveling was intense. Billy is now 75 years young, still playing great. He lives in Switzerland, and he's just playing better than ever and still working on projects, recording and performing, doing clinics, doing teaching online. He's still extremely active in what's happening. But it was amazing how to witness that open-handed playing when you saw that up close, right? Billy's a natural right-handed person. And when he started playing open-handed with his left hand on his hi-hat, he just kind of willed his way to learn that. And that gave him a freedom and a skill and an incredible openness to his playing that has just been absolutely magical.
Like I say, I mean, like, over the years, one thing that I've always been big on is cymbals. Cymbals is my thing. And I personally, I can play any drum kit. I don't care how badly tuned it is or how cheap it is, but I can't play any cymbal. And Cobham really inspired me about cymbal choice and types of cymbal. And I remember back in 1977 buying a 22-inch China type because Cobham had one.
Yeah.
And I don't know why I used Billy's choice of cymbals is like mind-bending. And yeah, I mean, what can't you say about Billy Cobham? He's just one of the greatest drummers of all time.
And just a great humble human. I mean, he really is a very compassionate person. But let's talk about your cymbals now. You've been with Sabian many years. Talk about your setup and what you use and what models you use. Just
right. Okay. Well, I mean, over the years, I use HHX. I haven't got. Well, these are my I use these cymbals here because I'm not in my teaching studio today. These are what I use in the studio. This one, I've had it for many years. It just sounds really sweet, but I normally use HHX cymbals, which are exactly what I want from a cymbal. And I don't sort of like mix and match. They're all HHX, and they're all just mind-bendingly good.
well, it's kind of interesting. What sizes do you like using?
I use 18, 16 crash. I have a 20 ride. I have one of those Evolution crashes as well. I have a 8-inch splash, 6-inch splash, and 14-inch hi-hats.
Boy, it's amazing how the Evolution, which was designed by Dave Weckl, another brilliant mind in what we see in drumming, and his Evolution series is wonderful. I also have one of the Evolution rides on my kit here, and plus his Legacy series is also another even thinner cymbal that has a more open sound to what's happening. It's brilliant that the quality of cymbal. You've been playing Sabian for a long time.
Right. Yeah. Well, I mean, of course, Dave Weckl is another legend, isn't he? I mean, I've not mentioned him yet, but wow, what that guy doesn't know. And of course, he's over the years, he's just proved himself time and time again to be like a world-class, brilliant player. Every recording, every gig he's done is all gobsmackingly good.
Boy, and he's so articulate when he explains things and the techniques and how he teaches and the concepts of playing musical. I mean, Dave really kind of hits the whole spectrum of everything as far as understanding this great instrument. And his online school, Dave Weckl's online school, I highly suggest everyone to get involved with that. He's got some great ideas on there too. It's really amazing. Do me a favor, before we go on, I want to make sure we talk about the Drummers Alliance that you had put together years ago. This, Toni, was an incredible energy that you put together and the different contests that you had. Just talk about what that was behind that idea.
That's interesting you asked me that, Dom. The reason I started Drummers Alliance, believe it or not, was Buddy Rich died in 1987 and I was gutted. And at that point, I was doing quite a lot of studio work, but a lot of the studios were buying Linn machines and drum machines. And I thought, I want to do something to promote the art form of drums. So what I did was it took quite a while. I got sponsors, all different companies to come in, and we set off going around Britain doing competitions for marching bands, classical percussion, and drum kit. So the first one we did was we got big figures, and I think we did about 3 or 4 after that. And some of the winners of the competitions have all gone on to become really stellar players. In fact, Pete Ray Biggin was in one of the competitions. Another guy from Sheffield called Chris Bailey, he was in a competition. He lives in America now. He plays for people like Britney Spears. Steve Barney, do you know Steve?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. Now, Steve didn't even win, but it gave him a shot in the arm, and he's become like a super session drummer, and he plays for absolutely everybody. So it's nice because when we did all these competitions, the winners and the people who got a buzz from it, they keep in contact with me. But one of the major things I got from the competition, and this is quite a good observation, Dom, is that when you watch these amateur players, some of them are just ridiculously good.
Yeah.
I mean, some of the guys, I remember we had one guy in Wales, Cardiff in Wales, and he had chops like Buddy Rich. I mean, it was unbelievable to watch. And but he didn't want to be a professional drummer. He's quite happy being a bank manager. And I think that really brings it home. There's a lot of bank managers out there that are colossal players that we never hear about.
Yeah. It's kind of interesting to see what you had done, because the Drummers Alliance connected drummers in the UK, and it just raised the level of playing to such a high degree. And I was a part of that and witnessing what you were doing. And there were some great drummers that came by. And listen, you and I are a couple two older guys. Let me tell you something. Those younger guys came by, they were blowing us away.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I totally agree. And it's the whole idea was like to get people excited about the art form. End of story. So also the idea of it was to get people to set specific goals. Life is meaningless unless you set yourself targets and goals. So these people that were entering the competition, they knew it was 6 weeks away. They sat down and they prepped up something that was musical and entertaining to a crowd. They got their chops up to a high level, and then they came to the competition and gave it their all. And of course, if that's a life lesson, just that alone, that's a life lesson worth learning.
Boy, well said, man. So well said, Tony. We've got so many more people that have joined us here. Here we have, Tony McNally's from the UK. He's up in Newcastle area.
Hello, Tony.
He's joined us. Suzanne Morzette Cruz, a phenomenal drummer that I met. She's from Canada. She's living now in Orange County in California. And she's a phenomenal drummer. And there's a video of her on the internet when she got married in her wedding dress.
I've seen that.
She hopped on the drum set and she played her tail off. It was so. Suzanne, thanks for joining us. Maxim Dioman, a phenomenal drumming player and educator in the Ukraine. My gosh, he's in the Kiev area. We've got Andrew Grigson from Kentucky, Jim Royal from Connecticut, Steve Delaney from Dallas, Fort Worth, Texas. Steve, I hope you have heat in your home, and I hope you're doing well. With you guys in Texas right now. Bobby Angeletta, who's a phenomenal player upstate New York. Steve Leach, look at this here. I mean, we got so many different people. It blows me away when I think about all these different players that are here from all around the world. Dave Jepson, man, just fantastic too. And one of the comments here from Sabian, let's see what we have. Look at this here. We're looking forward to welcoming our SEN family for tomorrow's members-only session on technology in the drum studio with Jim Toscano, hosted by Dom and Joe. It's sold out with 100 attendees. So if you're watching this session and you teach drums and have not signed up for SEN, you're missing tons of content that can assist you. www.sabian.com/join SEN. Join SEN, be a part of it, and we'll have more of these different events. We're doing tomorrow at 2:00. Myself and Joe are hosting Jim Toscano, who's helped many top players put their studios together. And we've got 100 people signed up. We've maxed out, but we'll do it again if you didn't make it in there. Just how to get your studio to a point of happening. I've got 4 4K cameras in my studio. All my drums are mic'd up behind me. And I've got all this different, phenomenal facility that Jim Toscano helped me put together. So this is where the new world is at, Tony, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, you've got to be philosophical, Dom. We are in a pandemic, but the tide will return.
Yeah.
Everything will come back. And when things come back, it will come back bolder and stronger.
Boy, Tony, well said. I want people to understand they can go to TonyCannelli.com, 2 N's, 2 L's in Cannelli, TonyCannelli.com. Go there and check out Tony's website. I highly suggest anyone to take some lessons with Tony. He'll organize it all through Zoom or Skype. He'll make it work out. You can go to his Facebook page under his name also, and Instagram, Tony Cannelli for sure. Absolutely find out. Tony, before we leave, I want you to give some closing comments. We've got all these drummers that are out there from all around the world. Your voice is being heard, and this is going to go on Sabian's Facebook page permanently and also in the Sabian YouTube channel for everyone to go by there and hear it. What would you say to this next generation that can fire them up to pursue their passion?
Oh, blimey. Well, basically, you've hit the nail on the head, Tom. Dom. It's all about passion. If you've got passion for something and you've got love, you will achieve your targets. No, but it's very important to make sure you know what your targets are. And of course, in the music business is all about proactive people creating situations. You can't sit on your backside and wait for the situations to come to you. You have to create this. So in other words, don't sit on the beach watching the waves. Be a wave maker.
Boy, Toni, well said. You always have been an inspiration for all these years, Toni, as I've known you, man. We'll keep in touch for sure. I want you to make sure you stay safe, stay well, kiss your family for me and your wonderful wife and kids, two beautiful daughters. It's amazing, Toni, that we're still doing this at our age. Here we are in the winter of our lives, and we're still doing this, hopefully going out there and sharing the love and the passion for music. On behalf of Sabian and the SEN program, Toni, I thank you so much. You're an absolute blessing in our art form.
Thank you very much, Dom.
Stay well and stay safe.
Yeah, thank you very much, Dom. It's been an absolute joy. Thank you.
Thank you, Toni, so much. Everyone that joined us, thank you so much. We'll see you real soon. Thank you so much, guys. Stay safe. Bye-bye.
Bye.